would literally look at the camera and think to myself, what am I doing? You know, like everyone's going to see that I'm a faker. So, I don't know. The answer is, you know, we all do what we have to do. And maybe I'm just a hero.
Can someone have approached you, though, a certain way without taking it the wrong way or taking offense? Because I think that's a struggle that we all face, is if you recognize it, how do you actually approach the person? Sometimes you'll get resistant.
So could someone at work have gone to me and said, hey, are you okay? Well, I mean, I think that's a great question and a really valid question. For me, I would have been fine with that, right? Because I mean, I was out in the open before that, but I'd never... And one of the things that makes this job unique as a performer is that if you alert people, I was saying this to Lori before, if you alert people that you're not feeling well, if you say before a show, like I got to go back now and do the show, and if I say to the producer before the show, you know, I'm not having a great day, it's a struggle, inevitably afterwards they will always say, hey, you didn't seem like you were at your best, because now you've alerted them, you've cued them to look for something, and if you're looking for something, if you're looking for good, you'll always find good, and if you're looking for struggle, you'll always find struggle. So that kind of makes this job a little bit unique from that standpoint. But I started to share 3.5 years ago. We had a guest, Stefan Riche, cheating hat, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, 50-goal scorer. Yeah, that's right, it's on. And I had read that he had suffered from depression, severely. But I never heard him talk about it. So I said to him casually, I mean, this was I wasn't trying to change the world. I was just trying to do a decent TV show and ask a question that other people hadn't asked. So I said, would it be okay if I asked you about this? Now, I said to him, you don't know me, and you have no obligation, because I would never go there without clearing it with you first. But I would throw it out there by saying, I too have suffered, and I too have struggled, and I too have lost a lot of years in my life because of it. And he thought about it, and he said, yeah, okay, you can do that. And I asked him, we talked about it for maybe 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, and that changed my life. Because afterwards, after the show went to air, I got emails. And there were maybe 24 of them, almost all from men, almost all saying, I never heard a guy talk about mental illness like that before. I never heard a guy speak about it publicly, period, but let alone on a sports show with a guy who won Stanley Cups, because I always perceived myself having a mental illness, and this is what people wrote, as being weak. And when you guys talked about it, you didn't sound weak. So now I'm sharing with you. I mean, like letter after letter, people saying, I'm sharing with you for the first time in my life. I've never told this to you. Imagine, like I'm a stranger. I'll never see these people face to face. But they said, inevitably, over and over again, I am sharing for the first time, and tomorrow now, I'm going to share with my doctor or my wife. And I realized at that point, that is the power. That is the power of sharing. This is one of the only areas in life where by sharing, you can help. I mean, I would much rather do this. If you could get 10,000 pounds, let's try that again. Last of my mistakes. I'm up here trying to hold it together. I would much rather get 100,000 people together with a stage in the middle at Wembley Stadium, and I would much rather be the MC of this thing with amazing guests who are famous, who have suffered, who would bare their souls to that audience, than I would do a fundraiser with 100,000 people where everyone gives $1,000. Because the key to treating mental illness is not necessarily research. I mean, no one's going to say that better drugs or better medication or better understanding is a bad thing, of course. But this is one of the few areas in our lives where simply by sharing with other people, we can help other people. And whether you're me or you, if you suffer and you share, you will make a difference to yourself, but also to others. People say all the time, hey, you know, like, this must make you feel better. Well, this doesn't do anything for my depression, to be honest with you. Being up here talking to you doesn't make me any healthier. But what it does is it gives me an ability to attach some significance to, good significance to one of the worst things in my life. And it's something to treasure. If you can help someone. Because let's face it, I can help people by doing this, but I'm not giving anything up. You know, and that's, again, that gets back to the you know, people will say, hey, thanks, you know, you should be so proud of yourself for doing this. I go, I shouldn't be proud of myself. When I heard the power that I had, when I said that, talking to Stefan Riche on the air, and I got letters from guys that said it changed their lives. And then subsequently, I got letters from people that said it saved their lives. I mean, I had a guy who said he was going to hang himself, but he heard me and Stefan Riche talking about it. I mean, he told me that I corresponded with him. this is the power of sharing. He wrote me that night, so this is 3.5 years ago. He said, I'm really struggling. I have a kid, 4 years old. I have no interest in my child because I'm so pained. And I said, have you ever told anyone? And he said, no, the usual. I'm afraid of the stigma. I'm afraid I'm weak. I don't want to share because people won't understand anyway. And I'm just a loser because I've allowed this to take away from my life. And we went back and forth. Back and forth, maybe 6 or 7 times. I mean, it's easy to email people when only, you only have 20 people to email, right? So he said, okay, Paul, I'll go get help. I'll try to get help. I didn't hear again until Let's Talk Day last year. So we're talking 15 months ago. I got an email from this guy who said, his name is Tyson. He lives in Saskatoon. He said, use my name all you want. And what he said was, when you emailed me back, I had a belt on a hook in my closet, and I was going to kill myself. And then I went back, this is him talking, and I emailed you, and then I went back to do it again. And you emailed me back. And he said, I actually looked at the computer and said, my God, that guy won't even shut up on it. This is him telling the story. And he said, you know what, I thought, I may as well give it a shot. And he went for help the next day. And this was 1.5 years later that he sent me this email where he sent me a picture with his daughter living his life. And that shows you the power of sharing and has nothing to do with me. This is not me telling you a story like, look what I did. I saved this guy's life. I'm not a lifeguard. I didn't have to do anything. I just did what normal people can do, and that is respond to someone who's in need. But that's the power of it. He felt empowered to get help because he heard me talking about it. And for that reason, I say, shame on me if I don't do things like this. Like, if you know all you have to do is get in front of a room of people to make a little bit of a difference or a big difference in their life, then shame on you if you don't do it. You have a question? Someone had a question.
Yeah. I have a question. Actually, I know somebody who got a scholarship went to University of Waterloo. He suffered from it, but now it's hard to actually get him to take the medication every day. Like, do you know any way that we can...
Everybody knows that. Raise your hand if you are on or have been on medication. Okay, leave it up. Put your hand down if you've never tried to get off of it. Well, sorry, that question didn't make any sense. Go ahead. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I suffer from depression, anxiety, and I'm stupid. So, although that's not a diagnosable mental illness. But I am trying for a third to add to that. It's like you got to keep growing as a mentally ill person. So you can't just say, well, year after year I got depression and anxiety. I'm trying to add something to the list. I thought postpartum sounded like it was a possibility. Apparently not. But here's the thing about medication. And this I know you will agree with if you've been on medication. When you're sick, you're down here, right? And all you can think about is feeling better. So medication is up here. And you feel better, and the medication is 100%. It means everything to you. And then, gradually, after 3 months and 6 months, you start to notice the side effects. And you start to forget just how low you were. So you think, well, I wasn't that bad. And then you get to the certain point where you go, these drugs, because these drugs change you, right? All of a sudden, now you're going, well, the drugs are really, I don't like these drugs. I wasn't that sick. How sick could I be? And then you try to get off of it. And if you're lucky, you get off of it, and you stay off, and you go on with the rest of your life. Because there are people who just have this, like one time with it. But then, inevitably, for me, it was like, okay, I'm off of it, and now I'm starting to slide again, I'm starting to think, wow, did I really care that much about the side effects? It's like the brain can't remember how painful the illness was, and the brain can't remember how difficult the side effects were. I mean, the drug changes you. It does. And anyone who says that going on an antidepressant is not a big deal is wrong. But it's a bigger deal than going on an antidepressant, is being depressed. I say to people all the time, because I have this conversation all the time, people will say, I don't believe in medication. And I say, that's a really weird way to phrase it. I don't believe in medication. But people say that all the time. And I say, it's good to respect and fear the medication, but what you should really fear is living another day with the illness. And anyone who can provide you with help, to me, you should grab it. Go ahead. Good friend who's a Buddhist.
They have a philosophy that we all have in us to do meditation
sure. I mean, there's lots of spiritual approaches to mental illness. I mean, we all remember Tom Cruise, right, talking about Scientology. Scientology doesn't believe in medication. And I would say I'm not up here to endorse anything. Because if you could offer me an alternative to being on drugs, I'd grab it in a second. But for me, I was desperate. If you would have said, okay, well, you know what, you can start the spiritual thing, it wouldn't have been good enough for me. And I think that, part of it is you have to believe it, right? I mean, whether it's the placebo effect that makes something work or not, it doesn't matter as long as it works. So I think there's other ways to try to fight this thing, and by all means go to it. I say to people all the time, the only bad treatment is no treatment. As soon as you make a commitment to try to get better, immediately you feel a little bit more empowered, like your disease is not controlling you, you're controlling it a little bit. So whether it's, Buddhism, which probably was created a long time before there were medications, or anything else, I say go for it. I saw a hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Apart from medication, next to medication, what about cognitive therapy? New ways to deal with things, changing the core values?
No doubt. He was asking about cognitive therapy, about behavioral therapy, about psychotherapy. Again, if you think that it has a shot to work, then you should do it. And studies show that people that go to a great psychologist or psychiatrist, that at the end of 1 year, people who are on medication and people who went for psychotherapy will be in the same position, that each one will gain benefits. But I knew myself. I went to my shrink and she was starting to talk. It's like, more writing, less talking. Because I knew that this was not a function of issues in my life, of challenges in my life. This was a chemical imbalance in my brain that in my mind, like I may be wrong, but in my mind, the only way it could be fixed was with conventional Western medicine, or I would have gone for Eastern medicine. If you would have said, take this herb and it'll make you feel better, I would have gone for that too. And I tried it, actually. I'm thinking back to 15 years ago. I went for the St. John's ward. And I went for a few other things, and it didn't help me. But there's lots of ways to do it, for sure. Over there. You're next. Hold on one second. You need a microphone. You need to be heard. Everyone needs to hear what you have to say. 1 second. Okay.
So when you were going through your struggles and you were going through this, what was it that you needed from your family and loved ones that could help you? Because I think in a lot of cases, if you're not dealing with it, you don't understand it. So what is it that, to say, I could do for my friend that's going through this?
You can tell your friend, and I think that's a great question, because that really is what it comes down to. What can I do if I have it? What can I do if I know someone? Because, statistically, it's almost a guarantee that everyone in this room will either experience it or will love someone, care about someone, be friends with someone, work with someone who does suffer. So everyone's going to run into this somehow. And what I need is understanding that I'm sick. And that A, I can't will this away. B, the question, what do you have to be depressed about? These are cliches and everyone's talked about them, and every article you read, there are these questions. But that's a valid point. But it's not just asking the question, it's just everything about it. You need to believe that your friend is sick with mental illness, whether it's depression, whatever it is, that your friend has a sickness which is just as real as if your friend had was diabetic. And again, these are things that are quoted all the time. And number two, so you have to accept that, and you have to allow them to know that you accept that, and to not question them, because we do have this feeling like, hey, my friend, he's being sick, and I said to him 3 weeks ago, I said, hey man, hey, I'm with you, I understand, man. If I'm using man, it's good. But then at the end of 3 weeks, we go, okay, you know what? It's time. Okay? You had time. It's time to get your shit together. And this has nothing to do with getting your shit together. So I think that's number one. And number two, which I mentioned before, was you have to appreciate the fact that your friend can't be who he or she was before he or she got sick. And if this person, think about it, is the life of the party, and that's one of the things that drew you to them, if they're no longer that, if you keep pushing them to be that, then they're going to feel guilt. And there's a huge amount of guilt, because I'm a pleaser. when I was a kid, I wanted to please my parents, and as an adult, I want to please my employers. I want to please my family. It's really important to me. But when you can't do that, all of a sudden now, people like me start to feel guilty. So you got to lessen the guilt by saying, I understand. And if you don't feel like you want to talk, I understand why you don't want to. You had a question.
So my question was, when you said you had zero joy in your day, I'm trying to understand that, because when I think of things that bring me joy, I think of watching a comedy or playing with a dog or going for a walk in the outdoors. Yep. So help me understand where you were coming from. Was there nothing in your day that was making you happy or giving you laughter or anything?
Nothing. Because now, you could look at me and think, oh, well, that made him happy. Nothing. I mean, that was all in it. Because it's not that depression prevents us from doing things that brings us joy. It prevents us having the ability to feel the joy. It's like we no longer possess whatever characteristic this is in our brain, whatever communication there is between molecules in our brain, no longer there. So it's like you could tell me, see, people say, do I suffer from anxiety? People ask this question. Or am I just worried like everybody on the planet worries about stuff, right? And I'll say this, what's your greatest worry? And if the answer is money, I worry about money all the time. It keeps me awake at night. If you truly are depressed, and if you truly suffer from anxiety, and someone said, okay, here's a check for $10 million. If you truly are sick, you would go, wow, that's great, thank you, that's going to make my life easier. But I'm not feeling any better. And that, to me, is what it's about. The things that made you happy no longer do, even though you may know this is a good thing, right? Yeah, this check is good. And when I feel better, hopefully, like I'll be able to enjoy it. But right now, it's like a fake smile. Oh, it's great. It's not great.
And the second question, sorry, was your depression more coming from the inside of you, or was it affected from, say, if you saw something go around the world or other suffering, was it more caused by exterior things or interior coming from within?
Uh-oh. There's pretty candy in my mouth. Probably not a good move. It's like, oh my God, it's got a list now. What happened? The answer to that question is 100% internal. 100%. Absolutely. It was like I had been replaced by someone else. And it was, looking at sad stuff didn't make me more depressed. And looking at happy stuff didn't make me less depressed. So it's just like something screwed up there.
Just one more question, and it's mostly because
I took my
I
pants
can see the whole
I took my
thing.
pants off.
Really? We have to pay for you at all? If
The first lap dance, always free. You told me you knew that.
I know.
I mean, you live in London, let's face it.
The question I have is, and I'm asking on the heels of someone that had talked to the team about exercising our mental fitness, our attitude in our fitness. What do you do to exercise your mental fitness?
Well, I think that, don't take this the wrong way. I can't hear what I'm saying. But it's a bit of a cliche. I understand the spirit of it, which is really important. But that's tough to do. Because by definition, I kind of see this as an illness that hits me and is very difficult to ward off. But that said, I kind of created this thing in my own mind, which is how I suggest other people deal with it and how I deal with it. And that is an acronym, SLAM. S is for share. The more you share, the better you feel, because the more chance you will have to get help. L, learn everything about your illness. Everything. I mean, I'm like a walking Bible of antidepressants. You know what? I'll go into my shrink and she'll say, what do you want to do? And I'll go, well, the SSRIs aren't working so good. The SNRIs were a real problem because I gained a few pounds on that. The tricyclics back in the day, those are really, really, I think, underrated. So maybe we should try that. Or the MAOs. Or, you know what? There's a new drug in Europe. And so, I know all this. But that's power, right? Knowledge is power. So you need to be an advocate for yourself. And the more you realize there is out there to learn, the more you see it as a viable illness. This isn't fake. This is real. So that's SL. A means action. You need to share with someone who's a professional, whether it's a social worker, whether it's, I was talking to a school yesterday, guidance counselor, whether it's your family doctor or psychiatrist, you need to take some action, because if you don't, you'll never get better. Here's the thing, I say to people, if you, how long have you been suffering for? Say a year. A year. You know what? You can bet that tomorrow, you'll still be suffering. Like, if you don't push this away, it's not going away. So you need to take some action. And M is what I like to say is memo. I write down little thoughts about what makes me feel happy when I feel good. Because when I don't feel good, I forget everything. I think there's nothing that I will ever experience joy with again. I mean, it's crazy how, even though I've been through this many times over, even though now I have 7 good days and 1 bad day, when I'm having that bad day, I forget everything that I enjoy. So I write down what makes me happy. And not the big things, but the little things. And for me, that's the best I can do for saying, okay, this is how I deal with it.
Awesome. Slam. Share, learn, action.
Memo. See, memo was a bit of a reach. I needed a letter then.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
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 It works.
Oh, just so I know, you said it's okay. So you're okay. You're endorsing it. Very important.
Clearly. I really want to thank you, Michael, on behalf of all of us. I think you shared a lot with us. I love the fact that we got a lot of interaction as well. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Yes? Not just the hopefully we'll see you again on TV with us. And,
Are you booking me for a return?
yes, we were definitely coming back. So on that, I'd like to hand you, which is over there, this certificate.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh my gosh.
For sake of time, but thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, folks. And even if you were here for the